Canton County sing this song, doo-da, doo-da. Canton corruption all day long, oh, doo-da day. Scotty, thanks for that.
Hello.
Hello. For us?
Yeah, I was so busy in the chat trying to type my next comments that I didn't see the link.
I thought that might have been the case. All good. So start with what your position was with in Massachusetts.
Well, I mean, you'll hear these two gentlemen talk about it, correctional officers. I started off my career working in the prisons, but maybe 4 or 5 years into my career, I wanted to move on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
So there's a very small specialized unit was attached to the Massachusetts Department of Correction called the Transportation Rendition Unit. In other states, my unit would be called State Marshal.
Yeah.
So for roughly 20 of my 32 years, I was a state marshal. We're given special state police commissions. We're fully trained, just like police. But we don't pull over people and write tickets. I'm busy bringing inmates from prisons to court for their next trial. I'm flying to California to pick up an inmate on a rendition and bring him back to Massachusetts.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
But also, when I was involved in that unit, because we have special state police commissions, we are also called in by, say, the Massachusetts State Police for like a riot situation or whatever. And we have all the resources and vehicles to bring massive groups of arrestees to wherever they need to go. So all my experience is vast, and it deals with courts and the criminal justice system. But when I wasn't a cop, as in what people would think of.
Yeah. When I was an officer with the correctional services, and they called us half police, half social worker, right?
Well, yes, that's a big part of being a correctional officer. If you're working within a prison, you're not only there for security and running the place, you're also kind of like a social worker in a way, because you have constant interaction with the detainees and inmates, and you have to know how to carry yourself, because when I was working inside the prisons, you don't have your gun and your pepper spray and your baton and your taser. Correction officers in state prison, they're unarmed. You and your partner are watching 88 inmates in a maximum security unit, and if you walk around being a jerk, you're not going to live very long.
Yeah, sure. Same. We weren't armed either, but I had the rights to like arrest people, like put in an arrest, like put an application for an arrest.
Correct. So when I was a state marshal, I needed the special state police commission to perform my duties. In other words, I would be called to a parole office somewhere in Massachusetts, and parole had just nabbed somebody for a parole violation, and if I didn't have that special state police commission, I couldn't serve warrants and have habeas corpus to bring somebody to court or perform extraditions from out of state. Yeah, and what really brought me into the fire of the Free Karen Reed movement was when Turtle Boy's first story dropped, and I saw and heard what was going on. It was one of those things where I immediately jumped up and said, "Oh my God, here we go again, more corruption!" Like that's what fired me up into this movement right from the beginning.
Right.
So
I've sat through many murder trials, several in that very courthouse in Dedham. If you went back and rolled the tapes on those trials, the person on trial for his second murder was already incarcerated, so I would be the person bringing them to court. I was always in plain clothes.
Yeah.
And a lot of judges in Massachusetts don't want the defendant to be in restraints or in like a prison uniform.
Right.
So the inmates get to put a suit on, and then we have to take the restraints off. so it doesn't taint the jury's opinion of the defendant. But I would be sitting right there with my partner. If it was a high escape risk inmate, there would be 4 of us there. We're all sitting in the audience or nearby the prisoner, but we're in plain clothes. You don't know who we are.
So that dude that jumped over the counter and attacked the judge, you'd have been on to him right away, right?
Oh, the flying squirrel dude that leaped over the judge's bench. Yeah, I was watching some of that.
I couldn't believe how much of the bench he cleared, like, because it's up high. So he didn't just like fly out over a counter. He actually went up. Like, I don't know how he did it, but yes, flying squirrel dude.
Yeah, well, see, if you watch, I know, these true crimers here on the YouTube streets. I never watched any of this true crime or trials on YouTube because I was actually at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's only after I retired several years ago that I started. It's actually only after the Karen Reed story broke, to be honest, that I even got into looking at true crime and watching trials on TV, because it's one of those like, oh, I used to do that. Like, I don't want to watch it, but it is interesting to see. And I look at other states or counties, jurisdictions, and you see how they treat, say, a prisoner or somebody that's in custody that's on trial. So some of these courts, the defendants in full restraints with their, prison jumper on. That doesn't happen in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, most judges, especially in Superior Court, they refuse to allow the prisoner to be restrained, and they let him put a suit and tie on, and they don't want the jury to know that he's even incarcerated, because the fact that he's incarcerated can't even be brought up to the jury.
Oh, that's interesting. Did you did you find it odd when when the verdict was coming out, or she was going to read their note, that there wasn't more police or guard presence? Because if she was going to be arrested, I would have thought.
Oh, believe me, they weren't on camera, but there was court officers on the standby.
Oh, okay.
In Massachusetts, though, the court officers themselves, they're in the white shirt uniforms.
Right. Okay.
They are not armed. Right. But Karen Reed was not in custody either. So, in other words, if Karen Reed unfortunately couldn't have afforded her bail, she would be held as a county detainee at MCI Framingham State Prison in the awaiting trial unit, because Norfolk County doesn't have female beds in their county jail.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
So if Karen Reed was going to trial every day as a detainee, she would have been transported by my very unit that I used to work for. So they would have been there.
So what did you think about Judge Cannoni? Had you ever seen her court before?
Oh, I hate Beverly Kane. I've sat through many of her trials. I know what she is all about. I know her history, where she came from, how she became a judge.
Yeah.
Her last cop on a live trials, it took 2 of them, were a disaster. She's a horrible judge.
I thought the last trial that she had was a hung jury as well. Well,
the first trial, so it was Lopes was his name. He was the one accused of unaliving Officer Michael Chesna and a woman that lived in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how familiar you are with that case.
No, I'm not familiar. No.
I heard the family's not happy with her over that case.
Well, see, Beverly Kane, I mean, I get political all the time. Don't want to get political on your channel either, but Beverly Kane is a dyed-in-the-wool, deep blue Democrat. She's actually a liberal activist judge. Wow. In most of her trials, she bends over backwards to afford the defendant every latitude possible, because she used to be a public defender.
Yeah.
Wait, what happened here?
Well, in this case, she had to switch it up. She had to go 180 the other way, because her mission here is to save DA Michael Morrissey.
Yeah, I wondered that.
DA Michael Morrissey from Quincy. So Beverly Cannoni's mother used to work with his mother, and there's all kinds of connections Beverly used to be a public defender at Quincy District Court. Beverly has deep ties to Michael Morrissey, and Michael Morrissey is he's been in office in Massachusetts in various capacities since 1977. He's been a state rep, a state senator. He's been the Norfolk County DA for roughly 15, 17 years. All of Beverly's juice comes from Morrissey. In order to get a robe and gavel in Massachusetts, you have to be politically connected. Right. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick is the one that appointed her to judgeship via her juice and power through her connections to Michael Morrissey.
So can I just do a revision here? Have I got it right that she switched it up with this case because Michael Morrissey's riding her ass? Is that what you're saying? Yes.
When she was asked to recuse herself from this case last August, well, August of the year before.
I watched that, yeah.
Where Karen's defense team was bringing up evidence that she has connections to the McAlberts, and she has reasons to appear unbiased, you know what I mean, bias in this case.
Yeah.
And there was a whole Turtle Boy string where one of the McCabe's said, well, we'll bury you under Auntie Bev's seaside cottage and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys are familiar with all that, how that went down.
Yep, we are familiar with all of that. Oh, I don't know Karen is.
When she took a 15-minute recess, I imagine her calling Morrissey and saying, what do I do? And he's telling her, you're staying on this, Bev. You got to save my butt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. With the motion to recuse herself, she took that. She didn't.
Yeah. So if you go back and watch all the pretrial motions, her refusal to recuse herself, the way she acted during the trial, if you look at it through my lens and you know the only reason Bev is acting this way is because she's desperately trying to save Michael Morrissey and his office.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with her doing justice as a judge.
All of her little breaks, like stopping the defense from talking and then running off and having her, like, we call it her beverage breaks, but that's her going back and ringing Michael Morrissey and going like, oh, this one's hard. What do I do?
Right. So I already hate Bev Cannoni, right? And then this trial starts, and then I see the way she's acting towards the defense, and I'm like, oh, I know why she's acting this way. She's trying to railroad this thing through to try to save D.A. Morrissey's reputation because she owes everything to D.A. Morrissey.
Karen, you've heard everyone call her Auntie Bev, and that's where it comes from because one of the McAlberts sent that threat about we'll bury you, to Turtle Boy about we'll bury you under Auntie Bev's cottage. So that's where the Auntie Bev comes from.
Oh, I wonder.
They call her. They call her.
I think Beverly Cannoni was actually shocked when that information came out in court, and then Eliza Little showing the chalk with the text.
Like, put that chalk away.
Yeah.
Happy about that.
But
chalk.
you know what? Even if Beverly Cannoni is correct and she doesn't have connections with these people, just the appearance of the connections should have been enough to get her to recuse herself. I mean, there's plenty of other judges in the Norfolk Superior Court system that could have took over the case.
Yeah.
It almost seems like it seems like D.A. Morrissey told Bev, I don't care, babe. You're saving my butt. You're staying on this one no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, so what's up Morrissey's ass? I mean, he must be friends with the McAlberts as well. Like, this must be part of the frat, you know, the meatball frat boys. Is that right?
Of course. When I'm talking about the flaw in the system in Massachusetts, so every county district attorney handpicks their own state police detective troopers, and they become part of what's called the CPAC unit.
Yeah.
So if you look at DA Michael Morrissey's collection of SS troopers that he's managed to assemble, if you look into like Fanning, who used to be a Stoughton cop, you look into like Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, all these people had connections somehow, some way through Morrissey. So say Fanning's a Stoughton police officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and he knows somebody like that has political power, like DA Morrissey does.
Yeah.
Morrissey will say something to Fanning like, "Hey, you know, take the next state police exam, get on the Massachusetts State Police, get a couple years under your belt, and you know what? I'll bring you into my Norfolk County DA detective wing, and now you're one of my next henchmen."
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Connections. It's all who you know, isn't it?
So
But
in
if you talk to the state police colonel, whoever it may be, and obviously Governor Maura Healey's in panic mode because she just put another one in there to make it look good.
yeah.
But the colonel of the state police will say, no, that's not true. The district attorneys don't get to pick and choose who the officers are that are promoted to detective and sent to your DA's office. But I know for a fact that's just smoke and mirrors. That's not what happens. And I was just commenting earlier in the chat, the Worcester County DA, Joe Early, his Mass State Police Detective Group is in big trouble as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
They were using body cams and recording apps on their phones to record suspects or witnesses.
Yeah.
And they've been withholding exculpatory evidence. And there's a judge in Fitchburg District Court that caught them doing this and brought it to the attention of the feds and the DOJ. So now there's civil cases for these state trooper detectives in Worcester County for violating civil rights.
Right.
And a lot of these counties in Massachusetts, the DAs have managed to assemble their own little gangs. It's almost like different mafia heads.
So what we're saying is that the Alberts themselves are part of Meatballs' frat party, right?
Well, it's so incestuous. I mean, they all know each other. All these cops, they grew up in town. If you're a townie in Canton and you look at who the police officers are in Canton, it's multi-generational. And if you're in on the townie group, you know, oh, my son, I'm going to make him, he's going to get to be a cop because I'm friends with everybody on the select board. The select board is the one who chooses who the police are. They choose who the chief is. Right. That's why Canton's so afraid of this police audit, because they've been fighting it for a year now.
It's Meatball who wanted it in front of Bev, right? That's Meatball who would have organised that. And so what we've got is questions about that. The initial charges against Karen would not have been in front of Bev, right?
Well, when Karen Reed was first arrested, she was only charged with the manslaughter and the lowers.
Yeah.
But Karen Reed refused to plead out. So what DA Morrissey did was he quickly assembled kangaroo court grand jury, and all these McAlberts and all the dirty cops came in and lied against her, and then he increased the charge to second degree.
Yeah.
That's why she was arrested the second time.
Because she didn't plead out. I always knew that was the case. They upped the charges because they wanted to scare her to get her to plea so that they didn't have to do all of this. And now they're caught with their fingers in the pie because they didn't have the evidence to back up the bigger charges that they charged her with.
Right. So I think DA Morrissey figures, all right, if I assemble this quick grand jury and get her indicted on the much more serious charge of second degree, she'll cave in.
Yeah.
Was there any truth to Morrissey saying, because I heard this, but I didn't see it, that there was a video cam of Karen Reed's car hitting John O'Keefe? Was that originally what was said?
Well, you have to understand the way somebody like DA Morrissey works. He's a legacy politician. He knows how to manipulate and control the mainstream media, which is basically propagandists for the government anyways. Again, my opinion. Yeah, but anyways, he put that out there to scare Karen Reed and David Yannetti.
Yeah,
David Yannetti, when he first became Karen Reed's defense attorney, for the first few moments or days, he believed that crap, that there was a video of her hitting him.
Yeah.
So if you look at Yannetti's very first actions, he was being very protective and covering that. And then he learned later on pretty quick that this was all a frame job.
Yeah, because I get a lot of people on my, not a lot, but a few people saying, well, why did Karen Reed want to plead or something the first time? And I thought, well, I've never seen it. I've never seen that.
Well, the fact that the news put that out there, that there was going to be a forthcoming video of the incident, it just shows you how much dyed-in-the-wool legacy Democrat like Michael Morrissey has control over the media. The media just does his bidding.
That he said, we've got video. So they went, yeah, they got video, they got video, they got video. But guess what? They don't got video. So it was just a lie.
Well, if the police had done their job, they would have had videos from the assistant Canton police chief across the street. They would have had videos from the neighborhood. They would have had the Canton Library video that shows Karen Reed's car driving by with her taillight intact.
Yeah.
Instead of investigating the actual crime, all these cops did was scramble around trying to cover for the McAlberts and try to frame Karen Reed.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty obvious. We all get that loud and clear. I really was just more curious about, what the stuff was going on behind the scenes between Bev and Morrissey and why and how, and you put all of those pieces together for me. Like I did understand that there's a lot of politics going on, but not quite to this degree. So, and I do hear Federer talk about it sometimes. Like he was saying that I think New York, where he is, he mentions is it Hines or someone like that? He talks about that. I don't know what that guy's position was, something like Morrissey's, I think, DA or something, and how corrupt he was and how he went down and so on and so forth. So I kind of guessed it was going to be, sounding a lot like that it was just going to be like just gangs of people in authority, gangs. Just how the
I mean, I guess what explains my fervor in this movement is, like I said earlier, I knew right away from the very beginning what was going on here. In my experience and what I know of the court system, the criminal justice system, the DAs, their state police. As soon as I heard the first story from Turtle Boy, I'm like, here I go, let's go, because we got to stop these people. They're out of control.
All right, we got a question from the audience, and now I'm like scratching my head because I put out a video yesterday, accidentally said Higgy's white Jeep, and then Brazilian girl corrected me and said, no, his Jeep's grey. And I was like, well, I was actually going to say silver, but I didn't. For some reason, my brain flipped out and I recorded white. But what colour is Higgy's Jeep?
I thought it was white. Higgins.
Yeah, they said it was white in the trial. And to get back to the Jeep being inserted in the trial that late on, where the Jeep was no part of this trial at all, I believe that's part of the federal TUI information. I believe the FBI and the DOJ have information that his Jeep was there, and they were trying to hide that fact. So the fact that the Jeep came up so late in the trial, being parked in front of the mailbox, I think that was just, they were just running cover for the federal information that was inserted in the TUI.
Is it possible that Higgy's Jeep wasn't there and Jen's Jeep was there with perhaps Ali driving it? Is that possible?
These people's stories have become so convoluted, where they're trying to like fix everything because of the federal TUI information that was inserted into the trial. They're like, oh, we have to add this to the story. It's crazy.
But I thought he said he drove there and he got there before they did from leaving the bar, and he plowed their drive, which I didn't think there had been enough snow to do that. So I thought
there wasn't even that much snow at that point. I mean, if you look at the videos when Canton police is there leaf blowing the scene,
there's
luckily maybe 2 inches. It might have drifted in certain situations, certain areas to maybe the height of 4 inches. That was part of the snow job of this whole lie of a case. They kept saying John OKeefe was buried in a snowbank. There wasn't even that much snow yet. The bulk of the storm was 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
That's right.
You're talking at 12:30 in the morning where it just started barely snowing.
Exactly. But didn't he say that on the stand? Because Kim Robinson in the chat says Higgins didn't drive his Jeep. Yet in the whole testimony, he said he got there first, he plowed their drive, and then he decided not to, you know, block people in. So he parked a certain place. And he
I think the FBI has information, GPS or whatever. They know where Higgins was and where that Jeep was the whole time. It's just information that's further to forward. But I think what they were doing was trying to insert it into the trial, so all of a sudden the Jeep is there.
Yeah,
and that explains
he had a lot. Sorry.
That explains why all the testimonies changed between what they reported to police in the police reports to what was being said on the stand, because the TUI happened in between. That's why it all changed, right?
Well, people have to remember, some of the people that were in the house weren't interviewed for months. They were trying to hide who was in the house.
Yeah.
Secondly, their initial police reports, right? And then there's the state grand jury where DA Morrissey upped her charges to 2nd degree. So there's that testimony, which actually changed from the initial police report testimonies. And the friends and family meeting they had for the witness statements, nobody was ever recorded on tape at the police station. So even their interviews are bogus, if you ask me. And then they go into the state grand jury to pressure Karen Reed further and up her charges to 2nd degree. And they lied in that grand jury. Meanwhile, the feds are chasing all these people. And they convene a secret federal grand jury and bring in all the McAlberts, all the cops. They all testified in the federal grand jury, which we're not privy to. But some of it was included in the TUI that was inserted into the trial. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If she gets convicted without any of that stuff coming out, I'm just going to be tearing my hair out. Like, seriously.
And then you get to the trial itself, and the testimony changes once again. So some of these people's stories have changed 4 times.
That's right.
Didn't Higgins say that he saw a tall, dark person coming in?
That's because Higgins is covering his butt because he signed a federal proffer.
Right.
And he's trying to just place Officer John OKeefe in the house, but not saying it's John. It's just like, what's her name, saying she saw a black blob on the lawn.
Right.
Which was another latecomer new information thing, because if you have all these people leaving an after-hours house party when allegedly Officer O'Keefe's body's laying in the front lawn, and it's not a very big lawn, I've been there. There's no way these people are leaving the house and getting into their cars and driving away and not seeing his body out there. And it wasn't buried in a pile of snow. It wasn't even snowing that hard yet.
Yeah.
Right. Because at that time they wouldn't have been like trying to walk on ice or anything, right? Like watch their steps or whatever.
No, I mean, it was cold and there was a big storm coming, but at 12:30, 1:30 in the morning, there wasn't that much snow on the ground yet at all. It was starting to get windy.
Yeah.
The darkness.
Ellie's own footage shows us that. The library footage, you can just see that it's a dusting of snow. It's not even enough for you to have got his bloody plow out for.
Well, even the video outside the waterfall as they close the waterfall around midnight and they're all heading back to Brian Albert's house.
Yeah.
You just see a very, very light dusting. So the snow had just started to stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It wasn't where you're looking down. Because, you know, when you're coming from Canada, we get a lot of bad snowstorms, like probably Boston. And when you're walking, you're watching where you're going because of dry ice and stuff like that, right? But that wouldn't have been the case, you're saying.
Well, especially if it's that cold, that light dusting, it's not greasy snow, it's not slippery, it's not, you know what I mean? It kind of just, you could get on your hands and knees and blow at it and blow it off and have dry pavement underneath. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's iron this out for everybody who's still asking. Brazilian girl and everyone's still asking. Higgy said his Jeep is grey. Everybody else said his Jeep was white. Jen McKay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what color it is. It could be a very light gray. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought silver because I was looking at what their stock standard colors are, and you can get it in silver, white, or black, and standard colors. But
What's interesting in Massachusetts, the vehicle registrations, you have to put your vehicle color down.
Mm-hmm.
They don't recognize silver as a color. So if you have a silver vehicle, your registration will say gray.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the same here in Australia. Mine says, I'm pretty sure mine says grey, even though it's silver. But yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Well, one of the theories when you talk about Brian Higgins and his Jeep and the plow, like everybody likes to come up with their theories or whatever. But one theory was they put his body in one of the cars in the garage, like went through like the breezeway into the garage, put him in the car.
Right.
Yeah.
And then backed it out of the garage and then pulled it in front of the house and then pulled him out of the car and onto the lawn.
Right. Yeah.
They're all flat.
So they were saying that Higgins back plowed the driveway to cover the tracks and footprints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we would have done a proper investigation, we wouldn't be guessing so much about all this.
Well, because I think the fix was in before Canton police even arrived.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm on
so
board.
So you got Higgins calling Albert calling everybody, leave your phones here, but the fix was in, you know what I mean? And then Brian Higgins goes from the house party at 1 a.m. directly to Canton police in his special little ATF office that he has, because he wants to be in the Canton police station so he can help manipulate the plan.
Yeah, when the call comes in eventually.
So you do think he went and saw Berkey straight away?
I believe that, Helena Rafferty was newly appointed chief. Berkey is the man with the juice and all the connections. So Berkey, I think, was out on a medical just before he retired. So Helena Rafferty was the acting police chief. But this was way over our head, a cover-up like this. So I believe that Kenny Berkowitz was called by people like Higgins and Albert. And they were trying to get Proctor involved. You know what I mean? So there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. That's why you have the butt dials and all the deleted calls. So between, say, 12:30 in the morning till 6 a.m. or whatever time Canton police finally gets to the scene.
Yeah.
There's been calls and connections and fixing going on all night long.
Yeah. From the
get-go. So my theory of the depth of this corruption is to the point where I believe Officer Sarath from Canton PD and whoever the other officer was that showed up at Brian Albert's house.
Yeah.
The fix was already in.
Good.
Like lie about what address it is. Don't bother Brian Higgins in his house. Don't knock on his door.
Wow.
That's how I believe how corrupt this whole thing was from the get-go, from the jump.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But a lot of law enforcement officers think that, like, retired ones that can say something,
Yeah, well,
the fact that there was 0 Boston police at this trial at all, tells me all those Boston cops know this whole thing is dirty.
Yeah, they don't want to be involved.
Yep. So the reason I wanted to ask you all these questions, Scott, is because the inner workings of all of this. You know how they work. You know how they, like, we were just listening before you jumped up to the LV cops telling us how how it works. Like, and you're telling us this is exactly how it works, and this is what is going on. So now I'm more on board because I'm hearing it from, people in law enforcement telling me. So that's a whole other
Well,
level.
it's when I listen to those Las Vegas guys, it sounds like they have a very solid department, up and up. There's not like deep corruption. There's not. Massachusetts is a totally different animal.
Well, what they
If you look at how who's in charge, how Bev's a judge, how and who is on the DA's detective units, it's all political. It is. It just is.
We're just calling them meatballs, frat boys now. We know what that means now.
Governor Maura Healey hires this out-of-state guy that's retired from the New Jersey State Police to be the new state police colonel.
I saw that. Is that good or bad?
Well, it's good. It's somebody that's not part of the matrix of Massachusetts coming in. But if he just goes right to his ivory tower and he's not boots on the ground, he's not going to know what's going on. Does he understand that all these DAs have assembled their own personal state police detective groups and the years-long, decades-long, generational-long corruption that's already in place? You can bring a guy in from out of state to fix it, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if they don't start with, ironing out the frat boys being attached to their DAs, that kind of thing, if they don't start there, if he doesn't start there, then he's, like you say, just going to jump in his ivory tower and collect his pension.
Right. I mean, this guy might be very good and he might be very intelligent and very experienced from his time in the New Jersey State Police.
Yeah.
But if he comes to Massachusetts as the new Massachusetts State Police colonel, does he understand the matrix? Does he understand how and why these DAs have their own personal detectives working in their office? Does he get it? Like, it's going to be a lot for him to even grasp and then try to fix.
Yeah. Interesting. So what else did I want to ask you? Okay, so there were some extra people that came in and out of the Sallyport video. Do you believe that one of the female officers that came in and out was Chief Rafferty?
Some people believe Rafferty's on the tape, but there's also a female officer that left Canton Police, and she went to Boston Police.
Yeah.
And she was on the witness list, and she was never called.
Who's
one theory? It's that other officer, the other female officer that doesn't work there anymore.
So hang on, whose witness list was she on?
I believe she was on the defense witness list. I mean, the defense only called 6 people. They had a lot more people than that to call.
Right.
They had neighbors in the neighborhood that were going to be called. They had a lot of people. I'm starting to think that the defense kind of just cut it short because
I think
DA Morrissey and all these corrupt police have their boogeyman coming.
I think they had
the FBI and the DOJ, and they don't want to screw up the FBI DOJ investigation that's currently ongoing.
Yeah. I think they had a strategy of keeping it short because the jurors were probably exhausted by that stage. But I think that they made their point that somebody else murdered John. I think they felt that they'd made the point that someone else did that. All they needed was the experts to say that, yes, these are dog bites, and that gives credence to the point that they were making. So I kind of did get behind their strategy of cutting it short. I thought it wasn't really necessary for them to go on and on and on.
The dynamic you have to understand in this trial, because the jury wasn't allowed to know the FBI DOJ is investigating this, and it's not, as much as I think corrupt Bev is, it's not all her fault, because U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy wrote a letter to Beverly Kane telling her, you can't reveal this TUI information to the jury directly. You can't tell the jury directly that we're investigating them. So everybody had to tiptoe through that whole thing during the trial. Karen Reed's defense attorneys, the judge.
Yeah.
They had said, well, if it comes out naturally, if the door is opened, it'll come out. But everybody was panicked not to let the jury know that the FBI DOJ is on this. And some of the jurors that have been interviewed by people like Turtle Boy have said, we wish we knew the FBI hired like the ACA or Crash Daddies. They had no idea, some of these jurors.
Yeah, right.